Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Trade Talks Unlocking the Experience. I am Kayla McGowan, editor-in-chief for R&R and responsible for the sessions at the Experience. So today's special guest is Brandon Adams. Many of you may know him, but for those of you who don't, he's been in the industry for over 10 years, close to 12 years now, I believe. He was mentored and is continuing to be mentored by Rachel Adams and Mike Adams. He started his career very young by cleaning fans. He's also worked very hard to get to his current position. He's certified by the IICRC and holds Master Water and Fire and Smoke designations with the IICRC, as well as mold remediation specialist. He's committed to continuous learning and teaching in our industry. Not only that, he's attended several ASHE classes, including Train the Trainer for ICRA 2.0. He teaches ICRA classes to contractors and hospital staff. And on top of that, he's an industrial hygienist for indoor environmental management for the past 6 years. Lastly, he specializes in mold and fire remediation projects, and he is a great asset to this industry, and I can't wait to see what the next 20 years holds for him. So, without further ado, please welcome Brandon Adams.
Hello, everybody. Just here on an interview, waiting to answer some questions.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. I know a lot of people may know who you are, but for those of you who don't know, can you give them a little bit about you and how you actually got started in this industry?
Yeah, for sure. So, having parents have always been in the industry, I've kind of been in it since I was born. So, my mother and father is Rachel and Mike Adams, which my dad owns a restoration company, which I've worked for ever since I started working in high school. And then my mom is industry known for her being the mold queen, right? She teaches all the AMRTs and everything, and so all both well known in the industry, especially my mom. And having been taught under both of them has help me a lot becoming a better professional and everything. So as far as actually getting started, I started cleaning fans at my dad's back shop when I was in high school, and then slowly but surely became a regular technician to a lead technician. Found out that I actually was pretty good at it, and so I kind of worked my way up from there. I went to college originally for psychology, so I got my bachelor's in that. But as soon as I got my degree, when I went to look into finding a job as a counselor, I was like, wait a minute, I don't think I like people this much. So I looked to my left to where I was employed at and found out like, you know what? I'm really good at doing this. Why not just pursue this full time? And so that was in 2018 where I decided to make this a career choice and haven't really looked back from there. Been trying my best to learn as much as I can and become the best professional I can.
Yeah, I will say you've done a great job so far. I think the mentorship you've had from your parents obviously does help, right? I think
Mhm.
they both have their own careers and have set their own legacy, right? And I think that's what you're going to ultimately do at the end of the day. So I was going to ask you how you chose this career, but I think you kind of already nailed that. And I think it's interesting that you say, I don't really like people that much, but are you able to utilize some of the stuff that you picked up in that?
Surprisingly, yeah, I use it a lot. A lot of it's in my personal life too, because I mean, as far as mental health goes, I mean, I've struggled with my own things. My wife has struggled, still struggling with her own things, and having a that perspective really helps in my personal life. But when it comes to my professional life, it's really helpful to help be empathetic and understanding of other people's situations, learning what people may go through, some of the mental things that uh they may be dealing with and how to approach it. And it's helped a lot with that. So it's yeah, it's kind of funny that I started wanting to go into that. And then I had my parents, funnily enough, didn't want me to be in this industry. They wanted me to like become a doctor or something. And I chose that. And eventually I was just like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I'm just going to stick with what I know and what I'm good at. So
Well, I think it's interesting too because there's so many people in our industry who have educational backgrounds in something else. I mean, there's two of us sitting right here. My education is in criminal science and then emergency management and public safety, which there is an emergency management and public safety aspect to what we do, but it's cool to see it all come full circle because yes, you have your degree, but you maybe not be utilizing it the way you thought you were, but it's still coming in handy for your day-to-day stuff and your personal life too. I think that's extremely important to really
Absolutely.
emphasize that.
Honestly, there's a lot of classes that have a lot of value in now, looking in hindsight. Like, for example, all my microbiology classes, I think I took two of them, and they've become invaluable to me among some of the other classes I've taken. I think one of the most important classes I think I had taken was my business writing course, which hated the class, did not like it at all, spent half of that semester deathly ill, and I still took away more away from that class than any other class I'd taken. So it's just looking back, I really appreciate my time in college, and it really helped me develop, not just technical and knowledge skills, but also as a person. And so I don't regret it at all. I do kind of wish I pursued a degree in like industrial hygiene or safety, but still really happy with the education I have. It just means I get to go back for more eventually when it's not so expensive.
And I was gonna say, when you have time, right?
That
Like
too.
you're
Yeah.
busy as it is.
Right.
Well, I think it's cool to hear that because I think there's so much in depth that we could talk about mental health and all of these things, right? Like especially with our job, that it does come with our job essentially too. There's burnout. Burnout leads to mental health issues, and sometimes we see stuff, especially when people are going through catastrophes or a loss in their family or whatever the case may be. So, I think it's really cool that you're still able to utilize, what you learned and it still sticks with you. Like, man,
Mhm.
I really hated that class, but it probably actually paid off in the long run, right?
Absolutely. Now there are a few classes that don't really help me now, but I still loved, but that's just part of it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. You said, my parents didn't want me in this industry. They
No,
wanted
I
me to
didn't.
go explore. And
Yeah.
look where I ended up, mom and dad.
Yeah, they wanted me to become an anesthesiologist and make just all this money, and that didn't happen. I looked at what the requirements were for medical school. I'm like, that seems like a lot of work.
Well, I was gonna say you work so long before you ever really get to experience it on your own, right? There's extensive training, there's certifications, not to mention just the schooling, right? I don't know
Yeah.
if it is it minimum of 7 years for anesthesiologists as well.
It's 7 to 8 with another 8 of residency or something crazy like that. So you're like 40
Wow.
by the time you're ready to actually become a full-blown anesthesiologist.
That is so crazy, isn't it? And man, I'm so glad that it came full circle though, because I know you're making your parents proud and also the industry, right? I think we are setting the tone for not just our generation, but future generations. And what you've learned and what you're applying does play a huge role in that. So, thank you for that. And leading into this, I know you love to learn and you love to teach. You're actually speaking at the experience. Can you tell us a little bit about what that topic entails?
Absolutely. So one of my niches that I've found myself in is healthcare work. And so I'm going to be speaking about ICRA 2.0, which is infection control risk assessment. And the 2.0 is just like it's the second version. And it's something that was developed by ASHI. Uh, and so I've basically taken that, learned from it, work in hospitals. Still currently, I still project manage over hospital projects quite frequently. And here soon, I'm going to be teaching it. I'm going to be teaching classes in our new mock hospital facility, which is going to be pretty cool. And having learned that, there's a lot of people in this industry that don't quite understand the difference between hospital work and regular restoration and remediation work. Because with hospitals, it's another ball game because some contractors may deal with the one-off immunocompromised person inside of a house that has a mold project. Well, that's hospitals, but all the time. And you're dealing with people that it just takes a stray particle to just not only make them ill, but to kill them. And so it's why taking all of the necessary precautions is so important. And a lot of contractors aren't really familiar with how to do that. And so that's why ICRA is so important to our industry and to learn from, to help restorers not only get their foot in the door in hospitals, but know how to do it well and to stay there. Because I mean, I've heard several times that A lot of contractors that work in almost exclusively healthcare or hospitals say you can retire on healthcare and hospitals because of how profitable it can be. But to get there, you got to know the work and how to do it. So that's why the process is so important.
Yeah, and I was definitely going to say, I think if anything we can apply this to is the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
This stuff like this would have paid off for our industry professionals because there was a need not only in hospitals but commercial buildings. There was just all of these standards and regulations that people wanted met, and I think a lot of it does fall back into that space of ICRA 2.0 essentially, to be completely honest. And it also will pay off in preparation, right? I hope we don't ever live to see another pandemic, but it's always better to be prepared than react, because when you react you make mistakes. And I think that what you're talking about allows people to understand the intricacies, the importance, regulations, rules that are different in specific spaces. I'm excited. I think it's going to be great. I hope I get to sit in there and learn from you and maybe ask you some questions. That'll be so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and speaking of the experience as a whole, I know you get to handle some stuff inside the restoration pavilion. And hands-on is so important in our industry. Can you talk a little bit about, the importance of having that hands-on portion at a show like this, or just any show really, and why we spend so much time trying to figure out what the sessions are? I know we've met on some committees and talked about what are we going to talk about, and there's so much thought that goes into it. Can you kind of just give some background on that?
Yeah, for sure. So speaking on hands-on, it's one of the most important aspects to training in our industry because a lot of people in our industry, a lot of contractors, they haven't really gone to college. They've either gone into a trade because they work with their hands or they didn't do well in school, and so they're forced to work with their hands. And because of that, most people in our industry learn by doing stuff hands-on with their hands, actually doing it. Because a lot of people don't learn very well from a classroom setting. Now, some classroom settings are required for some information, right? Well, supplementing that with hands-on solidifies that information and makes it that much more retainable for the students. And so when it comes to hands-on in the trade shows, one, it's more engaging, it's more fun, it's more memorable, helps people learn little tidbits about the industry. For example, what we're going to be doing in this upcoming experience is the restoration pavilion is going to be covering a loose topic of building science, right? And I plan on speaking about thermal cameras and how to use them for inspections and how they work and why they work. And the idea is to get a bunch of different cameras for people to come in, try to find some water spots, some on the built assembly that they have there, which should be pretty fun and pretty interesting. And it helps people if they can actually hold a camera in their hands and actually see what I'm talking about, right? And so you just, like I said, makes it more fun, more engaging, more entertaining. Um, Makes it feel like it's worth your money coming to one of those trade shows because they're not cheap to get to. As far as a classroom setting goes, it's like I said, even more important to provide hands-on, which that's why the AMRT is so important to have that hands-on class. Because if you didn't hand build a containment, it's not something you can learn by looking at a slide. You have to do it yourself. And another example is the trauma and crime scene cleanup technician class, where it's not mandatory to have hands-on, but every class is going to be better if you do. And so every class that I've been to for it or helped with, it's had a hands-on. It's always gone really well, whether it be to make scenarios with certain animal parts um, and all that. But it's always a better learning opportunity for the students and helps them learn it better, retain it better, and use it in their day-to-day uh, work life. So another example of it is in the ICRA class I'm going to be teaching here at our new facility. It's going to be a 3-day course. The first day is going to be the classroom setting, right? You got to learn what ICRA is, right?
Yeah.
The next 2 days, completely hands-on. And that's what sets it apart is because there's not really another class in the nation that does that. But that hands-on part is so important for contractors because that's how most contractors learn. And so that's kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, and I was also going to say too, your questions that you have in an in-class setting versus hands-on could differ, right? Especially when you talk about how people retain information. I think especially when we're talking about containment or even cleanup, essentially that involves hands-on stuff, which all cleanup does, but it's specifically trauma, you can actually show and demonstrate where your questions are instead of just kind of trying to explain it, right? We all interpret things differently. We all understand things differently, and to be able to, like you said, with holding equipment and seeing things and asking questions, or hey, maybe you don't detect where there's some water, why didn't you detect it, what did you miss, all equipment has settings, all equipment needs to be maintained. And so I think that there's an opportunity to not only be in the classroom but also have hands-on stuff. It allows you to also maybe meet with vendors and talk to vendors about types of information they have and equipment they have too. I think this is the beauty of having something like this at a trade show specifically.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's pretty cool. Your ICRA, 1 day in class and 2 days hands-on. That makes it more exciting, right? I think a lot of people dread sitting in the classroom, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. First class is in the last week of February, so it's going to be really cool. Currently still writing a course manual, which should be a really good manual. Um, but yeah, the class itself, I think we're building it. Our facility that we're building is going to look like, as soon as you walk in, it's going to look like a hospital. And so it's going to have all the same materials, all the same equipment. We're going to have a bunch of different scenarios that you can possibly encounter. And part of them are going to be from like real world examples that either we've experienced or other hospital facility personnel have experienced. And so it's something it's going to be really cool. Really excited for it.
Yeah, that's so cool, and that's huge. Early congratulations on that. I can't wait to see how it all flourishes and see pictures and all of that. That's super exciting. This is what it's all about, right? Everything that we do day in and day out is to evolve and put our blood, sweat, and tears into stuff. And at the end of the day, even though your parents didn't want you in the space, I know you're making them proud, right? Like this is your niche, right? This is what
Mhm.
you're great at. This is what you're passionate about. And it's so cool to see it all come full circle. I know your mom really well. I've had the opportunity to work with her on several occasions. And so, I think it's really cool to see it pass from generation to generation, but see how it's evolved, right?
Mhm.
Maybe for you, you'll pass it on, you never know, intentionally or unintentionally. So that's really cool. So I'm excited to have you at the experience and see everything. But this wouldn't be a trade talks without asking a fun fact question about yourself. Doesn't have to be related to the industry, but what do you think is a fun fact about you that people may be surprised about?
Well, I have I'll give you a few. How's that? I have three cats and I have a snake. It's a little corn snake. Uh, and I right below her cage is right below my collection of Legos, which I have a bunch of space Legos like that are massively huge that I have on display. And that's one thing I really like doing in my free time is building the really cool Legos when, I have the money to spend for Legos because Legos are expensive.
You're telling me our almost 10-year-old, anytime a new Lego comes out, it's like, oh, how much is that one gonna cost? Uh,
Mhm.
because the beauty of Legos is, yeah, you can put that set together, but you can also deconstruct and make your own, setting or use your imagination, or, maybe you'll make your own rendering of your new facility in Legos. Hey, you never know.
That'd be a project, that's for sure.
No promises on that, but that's really cool. Is there any animal that you would want to have that maybe you can't have? Obviously, we can't have all the animals in the world here, but what is like your dream animal?
Absolutely. Right now, it's me and my wife's dream animal is to get a Doberman. It's our favorite dog breed, and we love the breed. We love how smart they are, but unfortunately, dogs are very expensive, and they're also very needy, meaning that you have to let them out frequently, and we're just not home enough to take care of a dog, and that's just it's a dream of ours to eventually have one, but it can't happen right now.
Well, and they're so loving too, and they train really well. They're very protective, which most dogs, all of them are if you train them properly. I hear you. We have three dogs and two cats, and I don't know what's worse, the cats or the dogs, depending on, the supplies you go through, the vet visits and all of that. But we love our animals too, and that it's like a common thing that we all have, right? It's animals or Legos or maybe sports. And, I think that's really cool to learn fun facts about each other. People probably didn't guess Lego though. I wouldn't have guessed Lego to be completely honest.
Yeah, I like the really big, complicated sets. Like I got the Challenger, I got the Apollo rocket, I got the space station, bunch of the really cool, big, complicated ones.
Yeah. Okay. So, question for you. Do you glue your sets together or do you just risk it for the biscuit? If it falls, it breaks.
Risk it for the biscuit. I have had a couple of the car ones that my cat knocked over and broke, and I'm just like, well, I guess it's staying broken now. But yeah, I try to keep them elevated, like way, way, way up, so they don't get knocked over. I've thought about gluing them. It's probably something I should do. I just haven't got around to it, but probably a good idea.
Yeah. What's your biggest set you've put together?
I think the biggest one is the Lord of the Rings one. It's the Barad-dûr, so it's the big tower with the eye. That's
Yeah.
probably the biggest one that not only do we have, but the biggest one I've ever built because it has the most pieces. It's massive. It's like 3.5 feet tall. It's got a bunch of moving parts and stuff that moves in it. It's really cool.
So, I was going to say patience and attention to detail are two skills that you definitely have because
Yes.
we put together the upside down house for Stranger Things. And by we, I mean my husband put it together. I was observing because I was so frustrated. It was like 3,500 pieces. And I was like, Mom does, 200-piece Legos or something. 3,000 lost me. So yeah, I totally get it. But that's really cool. Hopefully, in the future, not setting any standards for you or anything like that. You build a model of your
Mhm.
facility. Um, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And for anybody who's thinking about going to the experience, here is another reason why we're just diving into all the things that are relevant for us and even the future of our industry at the experience. The experience is April 8th through 10th, and it's at the Charlotte Harbor Convention Center in Punta Gorda, Florida. And you can register at rnrmagonline.com. And if you'd like more of our content, of course, as always, you can check out our videos and podcasts, not only on our website, but YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. And again, a very special thank you to Brandon for taking his time to meet with us today. We really appreciate it. This is Trade Talks Unlocking the Experience. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you.